Do it. What is up? What is up? It is a beautiful afternoon or night or morning, wherever you're at around the world. This is your founder, host of Breaking to the Future, Joshua Taylor. I got my guy here, Samson, Mr. Hustle Fund. Is that what they call you?
I'm a Hustlefund Baby. It's slightly different.
Hustle Fund Baby. Hustle Fund.
Yeah,
What Hustle Fund Baby? What does that mean?
I earned every dollar I have. That's what that means.
Okay, I
And
think
so
I get it. Trust Fund
yeah,
Baby, Hustle Fund Baby. I
yeah.
feel you.
Trust fund babies. Like going back to track or running a marathon. The trust fund babies, they start at mile 25, and I'm still fucking catching them, and they're
Yeah.
gonna lose the race.
Yeah. Hey, out here. That's what's up, man. It's nice to meet you via virtual world that we're in. Zoom Nation. Man, this is fun. I'm excited. Just tell the people want to know who Hustle Fun Baby is. Let's break it down. Who are you, man?
So my name is Samson Williams. Many sky miles ago, I was born in the center of the known universe called Waller, Texas, right outside of Prairie View A&M.
Okay.
You know why that's so funny if you've
Yeah.
ever been to
Yeah.
Nacogdoches for one and Waller for two.
Yeah.
But since then, I've worked. My primary line of business is I'm a crisis manager for financial institutions. So my claim to fame is in 2008, I showed up to a small startup called Fannie Mae, who had ruined the world, and I was their crisis manager from 2008 to like 2016. I learned a
Wow.
little bit about Bitcoin and blockchain in 2014.
Hmm.
I spent a few years over in Ireland as the Irish ambassador for alternative finance, which means crowdfunding. Not very Irish. Yo soy tejano. That's a different story. Uh, and now I do crowdfunding because when we talk about decentralization in the future, we're really talking about the future of ownership. And
We can
that
definitely
really means
do it.
equity crowdfunding, not necessarily blockchain or DAOs or tokens, but we'll talk about some of that.
You are the
And when
guy
I'm not
me.
blowing Joshua's mind, uh, I teach at the University of New Hampshire School of Law, blockchain cryptocurrency in the law program. And then I teach at Columbia University in New York on blockchain, fintech, Python, AI, all the tech buzzwords you can think of, plus the space economy,
Yeah. The space economy, like outer space.
like rockets,
Yeah.
satellite.
That
This
thing.
is my rocket. This is my satellite.
Yeah.
And so everyone loves rockets,
Yeah.
Sometimes they blow up. Folks aren't that interested in satellite, but these are how all the real money is made because they send down data.
Yeah.
And so
Hmm.
when we talk about blockchain and we talk about digital assets, we're actually talking about digital ecosystems.
Mm.
In paper, it weighs too much to take to space, and space is a naturally digital ecosystem. So
Yeah.
as you see the billionaires planning to leave the planet or planning to develop the space economy, they're
Yeah.
really talking about how they're developing a digital ecosystem.
Mhm.
And what does that mean for us, we Earthlings who are too poor to leave the planet?
Yeah.
Talk about that later, too.
Yeah. Wow. This is lit. I was not expecting this, so my mind is a little blown. And that's what this is all about. Break into the future so you could learn, put you on game. We're helping the 99% of the world that isn't going to space yet, and don't have $1 million to go to space or 30 million. So where do I start? So wait, did you grow up in Texas?
Hey, I was born in Tomball Memorial Hospital,
Okay.
many last century.
Okay.
But I lived in Waller,
Okay.
and just recently I passed the Tomball ISD football stadium, which looked like it cost $15 million if it cost a dime.
Probably costs 25 million.
And so, and it's hard to explain to people. And I'm presently in Washington D.C. that in Texas, your high school, you're gonna spend 10, 15, 25 million on a football stadium for the high school football team. And everybody thinks that's completely okay.
Yeah. So if you're in China, Abu Dhabi, Europe, wherever you're watching this from, or even different parts of North America, so you know that you fill out a form and it says a religion. Football is I'm lying, but like football would
No,
basically
it's not.
it's
It's
still.
called it's called the Church of Friday Night Lights.
Yes, yes. There's a lot other things that people can do now because of the internet, but football is definitely still something that's still very prideful in what we do here in Texas. I played football in high school, so it was fun, but there's a lot of cool things like what we're going to get in today that we can talk about. So talk about, let's fast forward your career. So like, what did you do early in your career? And then like, how did you stumble upon being a crisis manager of the great financial crisis? Like, what the heck?
Um, I went to Florida State University. I'm sorry, I have to go like this when I say
Okay.
Florida State. It's just required. Oh no. So I went to Florida State University for anthropology and political science. After that, I went to grad school for medical anthropology. No one knew what that was. It's technically biological anthropology, but very similar to medical. So I
Yeah.
went and got a job as an epidemiologist
Mhm.
for the state of Florida.
Mhm.
So epidemiology is the study of infectious disease. And so my first business, I'm looking, they have these cassettes that you collect air in, and inside of the cassette is a slide that you look at underneath the microscope to tell you what microbes are on the slide, what particulate matter is in the air that's causing some kind of allergic reaction. Um, and in Florida, that means mold. And so I started a business in 2004 called ALB Environmental, doing air cassette testing.
Mhm.
So I went on to develop a program for Miami-Dade College to license insurance adjusters, mold testers, et cetera, for the state. I was 24 at the time. It was very funny because all of my students were, 40, 50, 60 years old. They've been
Yeah.
doing insurance adjusting work longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
But I wrote the test and taught the class. So in my first 6 months doing uh, air quality testing, I left the health department. I made maybe $31,000 a year, which at the time in 2004, I'm balling. I'm out of
Yeah.
control.
Yeah. You're young, so it's
Yeah,
like,
right. And then in my first 6 months, I made a little over $400,000, which
wow.
pretty much ruined me because I was an employee of one.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I became a giant asshole
Yeah.
because you couldn't tell me I couldn't out hustle you.
Yeah.
Hence Hustlefund Baby.
There you
Um,
go. There you go.
and so in 2008, I had about 40 employees. The Great Recession was upon us. I got a 90-day contract to go consult at some place called Fannie Mae, which I didn't know what it was.
Yeah. How did that happen?
I was on the internet looking up disaster recovery master's programs because I wanted to go into. So if you're on your roof after Hurricane Katrina, again, it's way back in the day, I was coming by in a boat asking if you wanted to hop in.
Yeah.
So I did emergency response. And so I was looking into disaster recovery because there's four cycles to it's response, mitigation, recovery.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to get into disaster recovery, which means after the flood, the fire, et cetera, those folks come in and recover the neighborhoods.
Mhm.
However, disaster recovery was stolen by the IT folks. And so I was looking at a job board and there was a position for a emergency manager at Fannie Mae to do emergency management. And I was like, I don't actually know what they do,
Yeah.
but I applied. I got a 90-day job that only lasted 8 years. And so I was the emergency manager for a hot minute
Mhm.
for 18 months. Then I went to the DC Department of Health, where I ran in 2009 and 10. I ran the H1N1 swine flu clinics for the Strategic National Stockpile here in DC. I know a lot of health stuff. I used to be an epidemiologist. Then I went back to Fannie Mae, lived in Dallas. Dallas is where the sidewalks end because they have yet to embrace sidewalk technology, not only in Dallas, but also most of Texas, by the way.
Yeah. Just
We'll talk about that
we need
later.
to walk more. Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
This is how I got so fat, man.
yeah.
So
We eat a lot of barbecue. Like it's
100%, 100%.
Yep.
So when I came back from Dallas in 2011 or 10 or 2011, I was only there for like 300 days. Went back to work at Fannie Mae. I worked for Fannie Mae in Dallas doing REO work, which is real estate owned. So I had a $25 billion portfolio of foreclosed houses, and I was trying to figure out what to do with them. Again, I didn't know what I was doing. Could always make it up.
Yeah.
And so I worked at Fannie. Then in 2014, I went to be the Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations and Technology Executive Office.
Mhm.
And what that means is I'm the CEO has a Chief of Staff,
Yeah.
and I'm the Chief of Staff's hand. So anything they didn't want to do, they just gave it to me to figure out.
Yeah.
Um, and so one day I'm sitting there, it's like 8 o'clock at night. Our CISO, our Chief Information Security Officer, named Anthony Johnson, he says, Samson, get on LinkedIn, wear better socks, buy some Bitcoin. And I was like, I'll get on LinkedIn. What's wrong with my sock game? He's like, your socks are black. They're horrible. Because Anthony, he'd be like, he's dressed up in a 3-piece suit looking
He's
all
one of those
dapper.
guys.
And then he's got like some Hello Kitty socks on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So he's like, you need to switch up your sock game because this black sock, that's like, he's like, where are you going on a date with 1987? I don't understand your sock game.
Like, you're not going to church.
Yeah. So that's who got me into Bitcoin. So I got a bonus, bought some Bitcoin, learned a little bit about it from hey, this is a digital thingamajiggy. I don't know what it is. I'm not going to pretend to know what it is. I just bought it because someone smarter than me told me to. Yeah. But then I learned a little bit about the technology.
Where did you buy it? How did you buy it in 2016?
Oh, what is the guy's name? Because Anthony introduced me to someone. Because this is a real peer-to-peer transaction.
Yeah, no exchange, I'm assuming.
Yeah, no exchange. Because part of it is like right now, my other epiphany that I had recently is that Coinbase, Gemini, Bittrex, Kraken, Binance, USA, Binance, China, none of them have a blockchain infrastructure. None of them actually use blockchain.
What are those you just mentioned?
Oh, those are exchanges.
Mm-hmm.
And so Coinbase is another big exchange. So those are 7 for you. So Coinbase, they don't use blockchain as an infrastructure tool. They sell the products of blockchain, which are cryptos and tokens, to people. So you go to an exchange, you give them dollars, your hard-earned paycheck, they give you back these digital beans. Is this digital being worth anything? We're going to have a conversation about that because often people, they confuse their desire for freedom and ownership with blockchain and cryptocurrencies. Because I tell people, blockchain does not solve human problems. If you want to solve institutional racism, poverty, unemployment, underemployment, or any ism, that's not a technology solution.
Human.
That requires human consensus.
Yeah.
Right now, we can't even agree that the pandemic is an issue. Half the country's like, fuck it. Yes. We're not going to do it.
Yeah. Wow. There's so many ways we can go with this. So so this peer-to-peer transaction, how did that go down?
Again, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm not even going to profess that I was smart about it. But Anthony was like, no, you can super do this. Give him cash. He's going to give you this, what kind of ledger was it? It wasn't a nano ledger.
Were they even around then?
No. Oh no, but it was, I'm going to have to remember this. It's happened 7 years ago. But I was like, all right. He's like, don't lose, whatever you do, don't lose your private keys. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I will not lose.
What's a private key? What are private keys? It's educational.
100%.
People. You're an educator.
100%. And so when we're talking about private keys, it's like 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the address to the White House.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell that to everyone. You can Google it and you can drive by 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That is just the public address.
Yeah.
So in the Bitcoin space, in the cryptocurrency space, when you have a wallet, you have a public address. You have a wallet address. That's like saying 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Your private key is you don't actually have the private key to get into 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. You know where it's at. You can drive by it, but it's secure. Your private key is that thing that lets you into your cryptocurrency wallet.
Yeah.
And so just remember your wallet address is like an address to your house. It's outside. Anyone can see it. Yeah. But unless you have a private key to get inside, you can't. But whoever has the private key to your wallet owns whatever in your wallet.
Key.
So it's called cold storage. I have a bunch of these around where I now write my keys. Because if you have it on your laptop, chances are it's already been hacked. So good luck with that. Yeah. Put it in cold storage, write it down somewhere. That way you can keep your keys private because the moment they're no longer your keys, you're probably don't have control. You don't have control over that asset. So if you're using an exchange like Coinbase or Bittrex, not your keys, not your crypto.
Yeah.
And so just keep that in mind. But generally speaking, we've come so far since 2014. and I'm not gonna say I'm uber rich, because if you've been hodling your Bitcoin, you didn't, because you sold it for something else. Because as soon as it hit $1,000, you're like, oh my God, I'm so rich.
You didn't have that foresight then
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
know the future. Like only so many people, probably a few people, really were just like stacking and stacking and stacking.
And so what I've learned over the last my 7-year journey is
Mhm.
that the future of personal finance isn't in blockchain. And people
Mhm.
want to argue with me over this. I'm like, it's not in blockchain, it's not in Bitcoin, it's in ownership.
Mhm.
Right? When I say ownership, I mean you are an equity stakeholder. Are you an equity stakeholder in Coinbase? No. How does Coinbank make money? They sell you
Hey,
digital thingamajiggies.
yeah, they
It's,
make money. They make commissions.
they make commissions. They
Yeah,
make a lot of money off of commissions.
yeah, they make.
Same way with all these other exchanges.
Mhm.
They don't even actually care what your digital asset is, because they don't care about the digital asset. They care about their customers who are trading these digital tokens in cryptos.
They're Coinbase Pro people.
Yeah.
They're
And
institutions
so
in the back end.
this is where, for yourself, and I tell people, when people are like, oh, Bitcoin is going to solve all the banking world problems, I'm like, how's it going to solve unemployment? Because if you have to earn whatever crypto it is, you're never going to earn a living wage. It's a political policy question
Mhm.
that gets very close to socialism. And now we have to have another fight. And I'm like, I actually want to fight with you about it. I'm just saying, if you have to earn this crypto, how is someone going to pay you a living wage? I'm not even saying pay you a lot. I'm just saying pay you a living wage.
Cover the groceries, cover the bills.
Yeah, that's it.
Some milk,
But
cookies.
that most people don't want to have that conversation, because they're like, but I bought all this digital gummy bears. I'm like, you bought a bunch of digital gummy bears. Okay.
Yeah.
How did they improve your life? And then the question, we're supposed to be advocating for cryptocurrency, but I'd love to ask this question. I'll ask you, Joshua, how does Bitcoin generate revenue?
Today it doesn't.
And so Bitcoin doesn't generate revenue, because if you have a business, your business has to sell a good product or service to generate revenue.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's not a business. It's a thingamajiggy.
Yeah, it's
It's
a
a digital
protocol.
thing.
Yeah, it's a digital.
And so people buying, I know how Coinbase generates money, generates revenue. Coinbase allows you to trade your digital thingamajiggies. And Coinbase generates a lot of cash, because Coinbase takes your cash, gives you access to these digital thingamajiggies, and like knock yourself out.
Certificates of crypto.
Yes. And so you're not even actually getting crypto. You're getting PDFs that say you have access to the cryptos. And
Yeah.
so people are like, hold up, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't understand what you're doing. If you're using an exchange, you're making Brian Armstrong, the CEO of
Richer.
uh of
Coinbase.
Coinbase, rich.
Yeah.
And
So
so
I have a question to that.
shoot,
You're killing it. Everybody clap it up. First standing ovation. So to the point when you made your first purchase, you had a cold wallet. Can you explain to the people? The people want to know, what
uh-huh.
is a cold wallet, right? And then, okay, and if I have a wallet on Coinbase was an exchange that's not really backed by a blockchain, what kind of wallet is that? And then can I put it in the cold wallet from Coinbase? So that's like a three-part question.
Can you move it from your Coinbase to your cold wallet? I'm gonna say yes. I haven't done this in a while, because I foolishly cash out of most of my cryptos,
Mm-hmm.
except I still have like a couple 100,000 Doge for silly reasons. Um, so a cold wallet it's not on a computer or an electronic device. It's typically written on a piece of paper. I used to have mine on some dog tags, because I had a dog. And so I put it around his neck, and I'm like, if you get this off Buckus, you deserve these. You deserve that wallet.
Yeah.
So a cold wallet means a lot of sticky notes. You might have written your private key here on your sticky note. Most of the time when you get on your electronic device, you will have a QR code that's your wallet address, so
Mm-hmm.
that people can scan it and send you money. Do
Yeah.
not also show them what your private key is.
Yeah.
So you can take it, from your online exchange and send it to your wallet address that's offline.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the easiest ways is my Ether wallet. Super easy to set up that. And so now you can take it from an exchange and send it to your cold wallet. And your cold wallet is literally a piece of paper. I should write this down.
Yeah. And you're just saying like the private keys, right? Because I could have a Ledger Nano, which is just if you guys type in Ledger Nano, it'll come up.
A Ledger Nano is like a USB device.
Yeah, and yeah.
And so the USB device replaces this piece of paper.
Yeah, because
paper.
Paper.
If you're really good at memorizing, you can memorize your seed key, your private key, and your wallet address.
Mm-hmm.
My memory sucks. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so this is where, if you're getting into the space, part of the challenge now, if you're just now getting into the space in 2021, Bitcoin is probably around 30K, more or less. We have to have an existential conversation about why is Bitcoin valued at 30K. We're going to go around in a circle because, and I'm going to tell you, it's because people believe it's worth 30K.
Full faith and credit.
Full faith and credit. It's a different type of faith. And so I call it the Church of Bitcoin. You'll hear the libertarian / Bitcoin maxis who's like, no, it's going to change the world. I'm like, it might have made you money if you bought early on and held it.
Yeah.
And so part of this is where the value of Bitcoin is based about how many people are buying into Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And so the value goes up the more people buy into it. But
it's like the US dollar, essentially.
The US dollar is a little bit different because the US dollar is backed by taxes and the United States Marines. So if you don't pay Uncle Sam, the IRS will come knock down your door with agents.
Yeah.
If you're a foreign country and you don't want to use the dollar to transact in your oil transactions or your other transactions, this is why we invaded Iraq.
Yeah.
Iraq was like, we're going to switch to the yuan, the Chinese yuan, to pay for oil.
And we killed Gaddafi.
Like, yeah. The US is like, you're going to do that after we shocking all you back into the Stone Age.
Yeah.
And that's why we have beef with Syria, Gaddafi, and Hussein. Mm-hmm. Al-Bashir, I think that's the name in Syria. Saddam was in Iraq, and then Gaddafi was in Libya.
Yeah.
And so that's why we had problems with this, because they wanted to switch from the US dollar as their currency by which they purchased oil. Yeah. And so the full faith and credit of the US government is a little bit different because the IRS will come fuck you up wherever you happen to be. You open your passport, turn the very last page, bullet point D says that if you're an American citizen, you have to pay taxes anywhere in the world.
That's crazy.
I know this because one time I was sitting at the airport in Brussels, hanging out, going through customs, and I actually flipped to it and I was like, holy shit, that's what it says. Actually, I'm going to find my passport. Don't go anywhere.
This is amazing. Wow, I never knew that. I'm going to go look at my passport after this. If you have a passport, go check it out or just look it up on
back. This is my passport. And so flip to the very last. So I've got this yellow card, which is for vaccinations for yellow fever for traveling overseas. This is my COVID card, my vaccine. This is the very last page. D. I don't know. Can you see that where it says D right there?
It's still blurry, but yeah. Oh, there you go. U.S. taxes. All citizens working and residing abroad are required to file a report on their worldwide income. Publication 54.
Yeah. So people think I'm making this up. I'm like, no, really, it's in your passport. They don't care if you haven't been back to the States in 2 decades.
They will find you.
They will find you. Uncle Sam wants his money. And so the full faith and credit of the U.S. government is a little bit different than Bitcoin, because the value of Bitcoin goes up when more people put money into it. Yeah. And they will tell you hodl. I'm like, but it's supposed to be used as a currency. You're supposed to buy stuff with it. Like, no, hodl it.
Yeah.
And so I know I'm blowing your mind. You're like,
I'm aware of this debate, right? I'm aware of so for everybody out there, right? So I would love for you to explain this, but right, we had the great financial crisis. You were in the middle of it because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac essentially were government guaranteed back home lenders, right? They had a whole bunch of government loans, securitized, whole bunch of crazy stuff. They were defaulting a certain percentage. They're going to go bankrupt. They got saved, right? Hustlefund Baby saved the day. And essentially, right, this spawned a movement, the next technological innovation of crypto, the blockchain. Cryptography is very old, right? It's been around for a long time, but we have a we don't know where this person is, Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin, which is a 9-page paper. You could look it up, just look up Bitcoin white paper online, and it'll tell you the meaning of Bitcoin was supposed to be a peer-to-peer transaction um, currency, cryptocurrency, which is cryptic, built on a blockchain, right? A series of blocks, which is just code engineered to say, hey, if Samson Hustlefund Baby, right, is in Indonesia, I could send him some Bitcoin, and in 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever, without a bank, without an intermediary, he could have his money, right? If I got family living in Africa and I want to send money back to him, or in Brazil, Timbuktu nowhere, right? We could transact money without wires, without any clearinghouses, without any intermediaries. We can do it through democracy, full independence, sovereignty. That's where the libertarians and everybody that wants freedom without any control get happy, right? Am I right?
Yep.
Right? Am I right? So that's what happened. So can you talk about how that evolved and what changed to like HODL gang? Like, and what does HODL even mean?
Hold on for dear life.
What are we holding on for?
Huh?
What are we holding on for?
I don't know. That's a good question. So what changed in the dynamics? Because Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Yeah.
So if you read the Bitcoin white paper by the anonymous Satoshi, it doesn't actually say Bitcoin. I'm sorry, not Bitcoin, blockchain. Rather.
Blockchain. It doesn't say blockchain.
It doesn't say blockchain. It talks about decentralized ledger technology. And so, and then there's no mention of exchanges. Where the game got twisted is when there's exchanges, because a peer-to-peer electronic cash system is between me and you, between two peers.
Holy smokes, yeah.
When the exchanges are like, hey, we can make money off these humans.
Yeah.
And they're like, we can put now all of a sudden the exchanges, human, when it was just peer-to-peer, is like this, human.
They did the same thing that the old system is doing.
The exchanges are like, we're going to replace the banks with us.
Yeah. A crypto bank.
Yeah, now you have a crypto bank. And I'm like, that's actually not that revolutionary, because one, you still got to earn your crypto. So no one's going to like, oh, I'll get paid in crypto. Motherfucker, that means you have a job.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Now that you have a job, are you getting a living wage? I don't know. And then if you use an exchange, okay, what's the difference between that and the bank? Then we're like, oh, we have to have this long conversation. So where the game got twisted was exchanges figured out they could make real money by trading these digital beans, by replacing banks and being the middleman. If you're doing a straight peer-to-peer electronic system, you're trading IOUs, you're trading favors. That's 100% cool. The moment you involve an exchange, you might as well just use cash.
Yeah.
And so that's very upsetting to people, because they're like, no, crypto, blockchain is going to democratize something I don't understand yet. And I'm like, that's not what happened. So let's take a step back. And after the 2008 crisis, financial crisis, there was a crisis of confidence by people in the government and the banking system, because they knew there was something fundamentally wrong.
Yes.
They're like, hey, why is it that every decade, this is also my rant on how effective crowdfunding is. Crowdfunding is so effective. Every decade, Wall Street does it from taxpayers. 2008, most recently here in 2020. In 2020, we printed $6 to $12 trillion. We had to give airline executives $30 billion so they could give themselves bonuses before they fired all their staff.
Yeah.
Did we get any equity? When I say we, I mean taxpayers. Did Joshua, did you get any equity in Delta? Any shares?
I don't see. I don't see any.
I didn't get any
I
shares.
don't see any Lambos.
But your tax money went to these private entities.
Yeah.
And this is how you know crowdfunding works, because Wall Street does it every decade like clockwork. 2008, bailout. 2020, bailout. Wall Street's like, we're so good at this crowdfunding shit. We make taxpayers do it, and then we blame them.
Yeah.
I'm like, and so
they're the greatest marketing and financial wizards.
100%. In 2008, the financial crisis set in. Satoshi was like, yo, there's got to be a better way. It was a crisis of confidence in the banking and the government, because the banks and the government had sold out the people. There was a very good slogan: Wall Street got bailed out, Main Street got sold out.
Yeah.
What they got sold out by was unchecked capitalism.
Yeah.
And now we're like,
no transparency.
No transparency. The haves, the wolves of Wall Street, had zero social responsibility. Right now, we're having a great debate over, oh, there's no workers here in the post-COVID, in the COVID environment. There's nobody who wants to work for $7.25, which is the minimum wage. It's the federal minimum wage. Yeah. There are a lot of people who want to work for a living wage, but a living wage doesn't even start at $15. That's only $31,000 for the year. Yeah. For me, awesome. My living wage starts somewhere around $400,000 a year, because I like to eat a lot. That's different. and
you're pretty intelligent and can solve problems.
That's true. That's true. I work very hard to be a Hustlefund baby.
Hey, there you go.
But most people don't want to admit what the 99% want is, we want to adjudicate the ills of capitalism. We want to adjudicate the inequities that 1% of the population has everything. Because now I either sound like a socialist or a communist. And now we can have a real big political fight.
Yeah, let's get it. Let's get it.
Which is so funny, because Joshua, you know what the funniest thing I love about decentralization, and particularly DAOs?
Yeah.
So in decentralization,
what is a DAO?
A distributed autonomous organization. So here's the wonderful thing about the Bitcoin maximalists and folks in the blockchain space.
And what is the Bitcoin maximalist, and why has this, like, why has the faith in Bitcoin and the maximalism become so big? And then you can get to go into like decentralization and DAOs.
So Bitcoin maximalists, or Bitcoin maxis, as they're known on the street, are people who are such fervent believers in Bitcoin. It's gonna change the financial system. It's going to the moon. Hashtag Lambo moon. They just know it. They believe it. You can't tell them anything else. It's like everyone who was hanging out with Jim Jones drinking Kool-Aid couldn't tell them they weren't going to make it to heaven.
Yeah.
And so this is where the Church of Bitcoin, because when you ask someone, how does Bitcoin generate revenue? It doesn't. It's a thingamajiggy. It's not a business. It does not generate revenue. If you ask, how does Bitcoin gain value? It gains value when other people buy into it. But if you're telling half the people to hodl it and not use it as a currency, what are you doing? It's like you have solar panels to collect sunlight and you never use the damn batteries. That's like putting money into Bitcoin but never spending it on it, never using Bitcoin to purchase anything.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's the definition of a Ponzi scheme, where people put money into a thing and you tell the people don't spend it, but it does seem like the definition of a Ponzi scheme. And so the Bitcoin maxis are like, no, Bitcoin's going to change the world. I'm like, how does Bitcoin or cryptos change the world for the half of the world that don't have internet access, or are the 60% of the world who don't have electricity? Then we have to have a pause. And it's like, oh, Samson wants to have a political conversation. I'm like, you're only engaged in a political movement because you're saying, I want to get rid of the banks. You're saying, I want to get rid of government. You're saying, I want to just have people to have freedom. We made a social contract, we the people of these United States, in order to form a more perfect union, right? We made a social contract. Part of that social contract is we gave up certain rights to the government so that they could print fiat money, so that they could tax us, so that we could have infrastructure. One day, Dallas will discover sidewalk technology along with Houston, and they'll be like, sidewalks there too.
Praise God, yes.
And so this is where the Bitcoin maximalists they believe Bitcoin in so much. That's their church. That's their faith. And so when you try to have a conversation of how does Bitcoin generate revenue, what makes Bitcoin valuable, what gives Bitcoin value, we will end up back at the Bitcoin gets value the same way the US dollar does, through the full faith and credit, through the full faith of people. The difference is the US government, they've got taxes, the IRS, and the United States Marine Corps to enforce their will. Bitcoin, they've got trolls on Twitter. That's the huge difference.
People that have gotten rich. So,
and so, you asked me, but no, I haven't talked about decentralization.
Okay, my bad. I'm holding off on the question.
Okay. So one of the biggest questions is, rather the biggest statements is, you'll hear this often in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to democratize what? They say it all. I'm like, Bitcoin doesn't democratize shit. Again, it doesn't address underemployment, unemployment, poverty, institutional racism, or any of the other social ills.
Or inflation, for that matter.
It doesn't address the fundamental problems that people actually want to address, because in order to address the fundamental problems of inequity, we have to talk about how fucked up capitalism has become. And now I sound like a socialist until we go back to Bitcoin and decentralization, because the Bitcoin Max is like, we're going to take power back from the man, from the central government, and give it to the people. And I'm like, what did you say? They said, we're going to take power from the government and give it to the people. You're going to have self-sovereign identity as an individual. And I'm like, did you just define communism? And they're like, what? I'm like, you said you're going to take power from the central government and decentralize it, give it to the people. You've either just defined communism or you've never read the definition of Karl Marx. And so then the Bitcoin maxis are like, I hate you, Samson. Bitcoin's going to rule the world. I'm like, that's super cool. I'm going to go invest in Coinbase and take all your money. And so this brings us to my point earlier, where there are ways to make money, to make value that don't necessarily involve Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies. Because what people actually want when you're talking about DAOs, when you're talking about decentralization, they want ownership. They want equity ownership in the businesses that provide the goods, services, and products.
Yeah.
And so in order to do that, that's where you get into this thing called crowdfunding. And crowdfunding is very simple. If you've ever been to a church, they pass the plate, that's donation-based crowdfunding, right? You're asking a bunch of people for a donation. That's how we got the Statue of Liberty. It was crowdfunding through the newspaper back in the day. So when I say crowdfunding, I mean investment crowdfunding. It means Joshua has a business. He has a SaaS company. They provide some kind of service. They want to grow their business. They go out to their customers, because customers have more money than VCs. I'm going to say that again because I love saying it. Customers have more money than VCs, which is a great. A VC is a venture capitalist. Venture capitalists have created this predatory culture of funding businesses. So I'm going to give you an example. Shark Tank. Shark Tank, 5 sharks, 1 early stage startup. That is predatory financing.
It's a shark.
It's a fucking shark. It's in the name. I'm a shark, motherfucker. Guess what I came here to do?
They have your company.
Yeah, I
can help you.
I came to eat your equity. I'm like, why the fuck? Why do you want to get into a tank? Not with 1, not with 2, not with 3, but 5 known self-proclaimed sharks. Each of them individually has more experience than you. Now, Mr. Wonderful and Mark Cuban and Damon Dash are about to eat you alive. Why would you do that? But you're a startup. You're trying to build your dream. And so VCs, also known as sharks, they've developed this culture that says, if you're a high potential growth business, you need to come beg the sharks for money, 5-on-1. I'm like, no, you don't ever want to jump in the water with sharks. If you're so desperate for cash that your option is to swim with sharks, we need to talk about your business model. And so VCs have shaped this culture that only worthy businesses get VC money, because they're super happy to tell you, this is the VC folks, that they have a 99% rejection rate. If you're black, if you're a woman, if you're black and a woman, double fuck you. you have a better chance of getting eaten by a giraffe while shrugged by lightning than you would do of getting VC money.
Why?
I'm going to repeat that. Eaten by a giraffe and struck by lightning than
Why?
getting VC
Why
money.
is that?
Institutional
You're
racism.
crazy. You're crazy, Hustlefund Baby. What are you talking about?
Because they invest in people that they know. They don't know you. You're too black. What is that expression my grandmother told me recently when I was visiting her in Waller? Back in the day when she was growing up, if you light, you all right. If you brown, you down. If you black, get back. That expression in the VC world is still prevalent, which is why if you are a black female founder, you represent 0.001% of VC funding, of folks who get VC funding. You got eaten by a giraffe and struck by lightning. And so
what's the solution to that? And
it's crowdfunding.
Yeah.
Because with crowdfunding, your customers, remember when we were talking about peer-to-peer electronic systems? Yeah. It was just two people.
Yeah.
So at VCs, this is the business. This is the VC. This is the customer.
It's the same thing. It's finance. It's an intermediary. You're
finance. Yeah.
You're the gatekeeper to the money. I mean, I'm in venture capital, like I'm scouting, and I'm just like, I'm holding these people up from the money. I try to serve them because I don't have money. I'm a scout. So I just try to get good deals to the people. But I'm like,
this is why I love talking to people like you, because
I'm doing the same thing. I'm like, what? I get it.
Okay. Because there's a better system.
Yeah.
There's a better system because right now, VCs use founders to go get money from customers. Because when a VC invests $1 million, 10 million, 100 million in you, you know where they get their money back? Retail investors, retail customers. And so I'm like, why the fuck are you, if you're a founder, why are you going to a middleman to engage your customers? Because Joshua, you get $10 million from a VC shop, they're going to want $1 billion back.
Yeah, it's like the art, like it's like music, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, 100%.
But their take, right? The music saying, hey, we're gonna pay debt, right? So you owe us this money, right? So they're more like a bank, a venture capital firm saying, hey, we're gonna take some skin out by giving you money, right? We're gonna take ownership out. We're gonna take a percentage of your company by giving you this money, right? And then we want to return, but if we lose money, we just pay back to the investors. Cool. We would have to talk about how venture capital firms are structured to show how it all works.
But part of the big epiphany, particularly for founders, is you want to connect with your customers because your customers make your money, make your company valuable, not VCs. VCs, and the data shows us this. I love data. Occasionally, I pretend to be a data scientist. Y Combinator, it's an accelerator that's supposed to help the startups become businesses. They're the Harvard of accelerators, right?
Yeah.
The challenge is Y Combinator data says that for half of the money that Y Combinator accelerator participants raise gets spent on Google and Facebook ads. Why? Because when 5 sharks give you $10 million, they don't bring you 10 million customers. They give you $10 million so you can go spend half on it on getting customers.
It's like a label. It's like the music label.
Yeah. So in crowdfunding, it's you have a business, go market your good product or service to your crowd. Hey, you sell pens. It's awesome. Joshua, I sell pens. I'm looking for $2 million to start my pen company. And here's the deal, and this is where people get blown out of their mind when I talk about Jobs Act investment crowdfunding. If you have to pitch, don't just pitch to Shark, pitch to everyone. When you do an investment crowdfunding campaign, it's regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission and FINRA, Financial Regulatory Authority. When you develop your pitch for your pen company, you can pitch to everybody, including the people who are going to use your actual product, not just 5 sharks.
The end customer, right? The bottom of the funnel.
Right? And so now that I only buy Energel pens, don't fucking show up at my house with none of them big joints. We gonna fight. Yeah. Because I have brand loyalty. This is the only pen I use. And if this is a pen, if it's a beer, if it's a beverage, if it's a restaurant, if it's some type of SaaS product, if it's Calendly, whatever it is, the company has connected with their most valuable asset, which is the customer. And then a magic thing happens where your customer becomes your investor, and that's called an investor. And there's lots of science. So I could tell you what your lifetime, depending on your vertical, I can tell you what your lifetime value of your
Yeah.
customer is. What I can't tell you is what happens when you have 20,000 people who use this pin, who have invested in your pin company, because they're going to tell everyone at Stephen F. Austin School of Business in Nacogdoches, this is the only pin y'all using. We're putting in an enterprise order for this pin, whatever that business happens to be. And
Yeah.
so this is where the lifetime value of an investor, it's different because they have an exponent. And
Yeah.
this all comes back to when we're talking about blockchain,
Yeah.
cryptocurrencies, etc. Your business is your business. You should mind your business. Blockchain is a tool your business may use if it makes money for your business. If you create a token, a crypto, or a digital thingamajiggy or asset using blockchain for your business, you're primarily doing this to raise money.
Liquidity. It's liquidity.
Yeah. If you're going to raise money, that's the securities. That's the US Securities and Exchange Commission manages that. You're going to do what's called crowdfunding. It's regulated under the Jobs Act, JOBS Act, Title III specifically,
Yeah.
where under what's called regulation crowdfunding, you can raise up to $5 million, or what's called Reg A plus, you can raise up to $75 million, or something called Reg D, which doesn't have a limit on it, but is limited to accredited investors. Then we have to talk about accredited investors. We'll hold on for that. So your business is your business. Mind your fucking business. Blockchain is a tool your business may use if it makes money.
Yes.
If you're only going to use blockchain to create a token, the point is to raise money for your business.
Yeah.
So does your business need blockchain? 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Your business needs customers. And so this is where, when we talk about blockchain, when we talk about decentralization, when we talk about the eels from the 2009 or 2008 financial crisis, what people are saying is we want a more fair and just system. We want to address the circumstances that have risen where 1% of the population has everything and the other 99 have nothing. That is a matter of equity, because equity is different than use. You're using currency. You don't own it. Money ain't got no owners. I'm pretty sure that's a Biggie line. But you're using currency. You don't own currency.
Yeah.
You're using the products or services of the exchanges. You don't own the exchanges. If you want to change the game, you want to say, regardless if it's a PIN company, a SaaS company, an e-commerce company, I'm a community member and I own this much of that company.
Yeah.
Because only through ownership, and let me tell you, the most dangerous thing on the planet is a Black person who owns something. We know this from Black Wall Street. We know this from the travesties that have happened throughout American history, as particularly when Black and brown people start to have ownership of themselves, their communities, and their finances. That's when everyone's like, let's bomb Greenwood. It seems like a good idea because those Black people actually own it.
Yeah.
And so blockchain doesn't give you ownership equity in the businesses that you use every day. So if you're listening to this, the number one bit of advice is whatever business you use on a regular day, do you own any equity in it? Do you own any stock? If you don't, you need to reconsider what the fuck you're doing with your money, because you're making someone else rich, but you're not building for your retirement. You're not building generational wealth. If you're using cryptos, you are using cryptos. You don't actually own money. It's just a medium of exchange. You need to own equity because those businesses literally build the economic engine that drives America, drives your community.
Ooh, goodness. Where do we go from here? So what people just heard that and they saw that. If I'm regular Joe Smo, which the 99% we are, we're just regular humans trying to get after it. What do I do to get more ownership? And you're talking about this crowdfunding. Yeah, what do I do from here? And then how does that change the landscape of the world, America? Like if people are like, oh, forget that. I'm not doing it unless I can own it, a piece of it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
What does that mean? Like, because you have the stock market, right? Like only 50 to 55% of American homes have any type of stock participation, right? If ownership is ownership in general, like how does that change the fabric of how we live, work, play? And then like, okay, how does crowdfunding help that? If that's the more of the overarching theme here and what you are interested in and focused on.
So part of it is we have to appreciate the like even for housing that you mentioned. So HUD, Housing and Urban Development, it was part of the New Deal that came out in 1937, following the
FDR.
yeah, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And so it was in the midst of the Great Recession. And so initially not involved are allowed to have homes financed by the government. This is called redlining. And so redlining is the purposeful creation of ghettos, because this is typically you've got a railroad track or Martin Luther King Boulevard. Black people live on this side, white people live on that side.
Yeah.
And so this is some of the systemic racism that's just built into the fabric of our lives. And how we overcome that is we have to have ownership of our businesses and the products that you use on a regular basis. And I tell people very clearly, if a business doesn't want to fuck with you, don't fuck with them. It's literally just that simple. If they're not supporting your community, if they don't support your causes, why are you giving them money? I'm not saying be a radical. I'm just saying they don't support you. They don't recognize, they don't make a public statement, and they don't actually hire people who look like you and me, then why are you supporting them? Yeah. And that's just a conversation you have to have with yourself. And so when you ask, how will this concept of ownership, of community ownership, because when I talk about crowdfunding, I'm talking about the users own the good product and services. They own the company that creates the good product and services they use. So I was reading there on Instagram, invest in the Drivers Cooperative Inc. And so this is on WeFunder. And the Drivers Cooperative Inc. it's a replacement for Uber. Meaning it costs money to drive for Uber. You need to have a car, you need to be a certain age, you have to have your cell phones and all that good stuff. Uber will even finance that for you because they're in the straight pimp game. And so what happens if Uber is owned by the drivers? Yeah. And this is where the driver cooperative, they're raising money right now. They want to change the ownership dynamics. And people are like, Samson, crowdfunding doesn't work. Number one, Wall Street does it every decade, but we won't even count that. Number two, when you look at organizations that are community owned, I'm really talking about the Green Bay Packers, right? I'm not a cheesehead. However, the Green Bay Packers, they're owned by the fans. And so it works, but it's a different model. It's a model where people are getting, it's more fair, where the average worker will make almost as much as the CEO. Right now, the difference in CEO and employee pay is like 10,000 or 100,000 difference. Amazon won't let its employees unionize. Meanwhile, Jeff Bezos is like, I'm out. I'm out. I'm gonna leave the planet. Y'all do what you do. I'm out. And so when you talk about what kind of societal changes happens when you have a business similar to Uber, just called the Drivers Cooperative. Now you've decentralized ownership. You've taken all the fat off of the top, and now each driver owns a piece of the business. And even if you fractionalize shares of the business into each driver, so that in order to drive for the next iteration of Uber, you have to invest $5,000. Well, that's fine, because now you're going to share the revenue equitably. And this is what no one wants to do. No one wants to be like, hold up, we all have to work in equal parts to share in this awesomeness. And so this is where crowdfunding is actually going to help us address and achieve some of the tenets when we talk about Bitcoin. Because at the end of the day, we actually want to correct some of the social ills that unchecked capitalism has brought onto us. And one of the biggest social ills that unchecked capitalism has brought onto people as a whole is global warming and the side effect of global warming, which is climate change. But then we have to have a conversation whether or not this is real or exists. And I'm like, guys, this is not Christmas. It's not a theory. It's not a belief system. This is science. I can prove to you that global warming exists and that climate change exists. And if you live in California, anywhere from June to October, you're in fire season. I don't need to debate you. San Francisco is orange. The ground moves, mudslides show up. It's hot as hell throughout the West. If you live in Louisiana, last year you had 6 named storms. If you live in Houston, from 2015 to 2020, you've had 3 500-year storms. But a 500-year storm means you should only have this storm once every 500 years. You've had 3 in the last 5.
God's talking to us.
Yeah. So people are like, no, global warming was not real. I'm like, no, you just because you will not see the light, I can't force you to it. So when I talk about blockchain and Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, blockchain does have its place as a tool, as a piece of technology. So if you want to encrypt records of data so well that you can show them publicly, you're going to use blockchain. That is literally how the Bitcoin blockchain works. It's a distributed ledger of records of data that's timestamped.
Yeah.
It hasn't been hacked. And so if you need a similar system for encrypting data, you're going to use blockchain for that. Mm-hmm. But if you want to create new forms of money, of what you think of money, you can use blockchain for that. And until 2017, the most of the content on the internet was porn, but it turns out you could do more with the internet than stream porn. So just because exactly
what I didn't know that.
Just because cryptocurrencies are the easiest application of blockchain doesn't mean it's the end all be all of blockchain. And more importantly, blockchain is just a little sliver of what is the 5th industrial revolution, which is the digitization of everything that will combine natural language processing. And natural language processing is if you ever say, hey, Google, hey, Siri, turn on my lights or whatever, the ability to talk to your equipment is called natural language processing with machine learning so that your device understands my Waller, Texas accent, your Louisiana, New York, Alabama, California accent. And so again, if you want to figure out what is the future, small business owners, owning your own small business that's community funded. That's the future. And that's why I get super excited.
Yeah, that's decentralization.
The result from the web.
My Siri's talking to me.
See, Siri, humans in technology, one singularity. That was awesome. This is a clinic. This is a conference, man. We should host a conference, Break Into the Future conference. That sounds good, huh?
It does.
Yeah,
and part of it is, don't believe me, question me, ask me tough questions like Sam, that can't possibly be true. Millions of people can't be believing that Bitcoin is worth X just because they believe. I'm like, you've literally defined Christmas. It's a $2 trillion a year holiday based upon some fat white guy coming down the chimney I don't have.
I know. Where's Christopher Kringle's family at, man? Goodness. Good.
Yeah.
He isn't owning of it though. So
people love to believe in stuff. And what I believe is that if you own your own business, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You need to let your customers fund you because customers have more money than VCs. And in this model, when the owner sets the terms, it's so much more fair because Joshua, you're going to give your customers great investor terms because they love your pen, they love your raisins, and they're going to come back as your customers.
Yeah.
And when your customers are invested in your business, this is the future of decentralization.
Hustlefund Baby. This is probably my favorite. I'm not a favorite guy, but this is my favorite episode because it's combining two of my worlds, which is technology, crypto, blockchain, with finance, economics, and history, and which was like 6 different things. But I think it's so fascinating because literally 6 conversations I've had in the last 2 days have been about what? Something that's been on my mind for a month to 1 to 2 months. I don't remember how in between, but democratize investing. And guess what? I saw an article yesterday about a Florida company that chose to crowdfund over VC. Mm-hmm. And I've had a tech startup, Guzo, Guzo.io, look it up. We're a community-based platform. And we have raised over $1 million over 5 years. We have not raised a full seed round. which we're gonna do this year. But it's like, why is it taking? My brother is this super talented, got all the resume, can do this. Thank God we didn't know who we were, so thank God we didn't raise money. But it's just like, think about the average black founder that my brother went to University of Chicago Booth School of Business. So like, we're pretty privileged. We're not rich by any means or anything. We had to get it out the mud our way, like middle class people, whatever. Who cares? But it's like, think about, like, even doesn't matter your race. Most people don't even know what venture capital is, right? And so I think for that kind of, like you said, that monarchical, right? You're the top 1%, right? This proportion of wealth and income and just access, right? The average person isn't raising money for their funds. They're not going to be able to say, hey, I can raise $4 million seed round and have good terms and just go like figure it out. I don't have access to that type of stuff. So when you say, hey, I got 2,500 followers on Instagram, I got like another 1,000 on Twitter, and I got a cool product, I could do, I could crowdfund and I can raise 25K and get my business started.
Like, and so this is where right now this is all done under the Jobs Act, under Reg CF. So under Reg CF, you can raise up to $5 million. And so let me explain to you, Joshua, why this is so crazy.
Please explain.
GPs crowdfund from LPs.
Exactly. That's what they go shop around. And what is a GP? What is an LP? What? Please.
A general partner, they set up a fund, and sometimes it's a little bit of the money, sometimes zero of their money. So the general partner sets up a fund, the Joshua Taylor Fund, the JT Fund, right? The JT Fund, right? Oh, don't flex yet, man. So that's
too early.
Yeah, too early. Because remember, with funds, typically for the listeners, with funds you get paid, you get compensated on a 2 and 20.
What is a 2 and 20?
2% to manage 20% of the profits, right? However, if you have a $10 million fund, how much are you getting paid to manage?
2% of $10 million.
Yeah. You still have a job.
Yeah, you're good. You got your fee.
No, but you're not one person in your fund.
Yeah, you had to pay your employees.
You probably have 3 to 5 employees, and when you take 2% of $10 million, $200,000, and you split it 5 ways, you still have a job.
Yep.
So
to who? And you know who?
Oh no, you still have like a regular day job. You probably work for Booz Allen or somebody. Yeah. Right? Because people are like, hey, I'm raising this fund. I'm like, oh, how much is it? It's 10 million, it's 20 million. I'm like, you still have a job. Yeah. Because otherwise you're making $20,000 or $30,000 managing this fund. So unless you're raising hundreds of millions of dollars, you still have a job.
Yeah. The mega funds.
The mega funds. So general partners crowdfund from what's called limited partners, because they go out, and I call it sucking dick and begging on your knees, because you're like, yo, give me a $10,000 check. I get people bothered about like, I need a $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 check. I'm like, why? I told you crowdfunding, go away. And so the general partners, they got to go beg the limited partners to put money into their fund. Yeah. That's crowdfunding. It's the most inefficient form of crowdfunding because those are done under Reg D. And under Reg D, you have to have sophisticated or accredited investors. And then accredited investors, anyone who makes $200,000 a year as an individual, or $300,000 as a couple, or they have more than $1 million in assets, excluding their primary home. There's some other little details, but that's a general definition of accredited investor. Mm-hmm. And so, general partners go out to crowdfund crowdsource funding from limited partners, and these limited partners can constitute less than 4% of the general population. So general partners crowdfund from limited partners. That's just it. You can't argue with me on this. You get on the internet, you ask strangers for money. The strangers just have to be accredited. You're putting a requirement. That's still crowdfunding. And so this is how you know crowdfunding works. And I tell startups all the time, if you have to pitch to everyone, because when you set your own crowdfunding campaign up, you determine what your terms are. Right now, you've been at this for 5 years to raise $1 million. And I can tell you probably spent in travel alone before the pandemic, you probably spent $50K a year just in travel, just setting up your road shows. That doesn't include your time, because most founders don't think of their time as anything. I'm like,
that's more valuable than anything.
You gotta, if you're out trying to raise money, you're not actually growing your product. You're not engaging customers. You're not selling product.
Who aren't going to say yes.
And so most people like, oh, we can just do a Reg D, a PPM, and do it for 15K. I'm like, that's if you come from a high net worth. Like you already know rich people, or your auntie's a rich person. Then yeah, a $15,000 PPM private placement memorandum. It's an agreement that a lawyer will write up for you because you're engaged in securities, and later you'll file that with the SEC to say that, hey, you raised X number of dollars. Otherwise, you're going to do a road show because no one knows who you are. No one knows about your business. You have to overcome stranger danger, because who the hell is Joshua Taylor? I don't know him. I'm not giving this stranger any money. Damn sure not going to give him millions. Yeah, and you spend so much money on your roadshow. What were you going to say?
No, I was saying you need trust.
You need trust. And so your customers, your Instagram followers, your Twitter followers, anyone who's ever bought your good product or service and left you your email, particularly if they gave you a 5-star review, they already trust you. They already fuck with you. They're like, that pen is the best pen on the planet. We love Joshua's pen.
Yeah.
And so before the Jobs Act, Jumpstart Our Businesses and Startups Act passed, written into law in 2012, signed, the Reg CF was signed into law in 2016. Before 2016, Joshua couldn't go out to his customers and say, I want you to invest in my business. It was illegal.
That's crazy.
Now, though, you can be like, I can skip swimming in the Shark Tank. I don't have to breaststroke through a Shark Tank. I can go to my customers. Yo, and this is the craziest part. You're still going to go sell them your pen. You're still going to say, yo, customers, you love this pen. Buy this pen. Sales is the best revenue in the world. Sales is the best capital in the world. And you tell them, if you love our pen so much, invest in our business too. Click on this link. And now all of a sudden, your marketing budget has dual purpose. You're not only generating revenue, which you need, number one, you're also getting customers to become investors. And the moment someone not only buys your good product or service, in this instance, a pen,
that's positive already.
They're going to tell everyone else, yo, I bought this pen. I love that click. It's silky smooth on the writing. We should all buy these pens. Don't show up at my house with none of these big joints. And so this is where your investors, they change the game. Yeah. And so the last point about crowdfunding, because otherwise I'll talk your ear out about it. Most Main Street businesses, I don't call them small businesses because you ain't got small bills. Every day you got a bill. You need to pay it. You got rent, you got your car, your insurance, you got health insurance. You've got bills. There's no such thing as small bills. They all stack up. You don't run a small business. You run a Main Street business. Most Main Street businesses, they only need to raise between $125,000 and $200,000 in their seed round to actually start their business. Mm-hmm. The VCs, the sharks, they'll be like, if you're not going to raise 5, 10, 15, 20, $30 million, don't fucking
not good for their allocation.
It's not worth, that juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
And so you're like, yo, but I literally only need $250K.
It's misuse of funds.
Correct. And I tell people, particularly when you start your business as an entrepreneur, I lost $500,000 in 2016 because founder one sued founder two over a $12 domain name. Blew up the whole deal. It's like, guys, we should have just piled money here, burned it, and made marshmallows. It would have been better than 6 months at $500,000. So, but that happens. But for most Main Street businesses, they only need $150,000, $200,000. And as an entrepreneur, you might be thinking, that's a lot of money. But let me tell you this, you're not going to let a crackhead out hustle you. You're doing cocaine, you're spending $1,000 a day. There are 365 days in a year. That's only $365,000. Start a business and you'll be like, I burned through that in like the first week. Mm-hmm. But remember, you're pursuing your dreams. You're trying to live up to your human potentials. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, sometimes it does take a little bit more than $1,000 a day. And people are always shocked when it's like, I've been trying to raise money for 5 years. I've only raised $1 million. How much did it cost you to try to raise that $1 million over 5 years? And when we sit down and go through the numbers, you're like, yo, I don't even know where that $500,000 went over 5 years trying to raise $1 million. I'm like, your cost of funds is all out of whack.
Yeah, $40K a month goes fast when you're running a business.
It does. It does. Let me tell you. Oh man, payroll used to murder me. I used to be like, oh my god, I gotta pay payroll, and payroll happens every Friday.
Yeah.
Or every other Friday, depending how it is. So I'm gonna end on that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can have another conversation about the pros and cons of VCs. And just for yourself, Joshua, just remember, if you've got to pitch to everyone.
Yeah.
Right. Don't just pitch to the sharks. Pitch to your customers as well. And people think crowdfunding is expensive. You still have to fill out the same exact documentations, pitch decks, disclaimers for your investors, whether they're angels or sharks, as you do for the crowd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go on.
I was just saying we're as we coming up on time, we got a few minutes left, but I guess I have like a couple of challenges. Not challenging, but like, okay, do you think crowdfunding really says what is the future of crowdfunding across the US, across the world, and like does it take down traditional financing early stage structures, or is it like a mix of the two? Like, because then we're just saying like this industry is not sustainable. Like this industry is not it's not even just fair. It's just not. It doesn't.
It's predatory. That's the word you're looking for.
Yeah, it's predatory. Like predatory lending, it's predatory investing. So
what crowdfunding does is it makes the sharks tame. Because here's what happened. So the Jobs Act, Reg CF, part of the Jobs Act, has been legal since 2016. So I'm the president of the Crowdfunding Professional Association. So I talk about this all the time. So I'm in DC because most of the time I don't say how much money we've raised. So far in the Reg CF world, just for 2021, we raised $239 million. And most people like, that's only $239 million. It's not even a proper B round. Yeah, that represents 567 businesses.
Yeah. And it's only been 5 years, right? So
we're a kindergartner. You're fucking worried about my kindergartner. The reason the VCs are worried about this kindergartner that is Reg CF is so far as of July of 2021, we've raised $239 million in the Reg CF bucket only. That represents funding for 567 small businesses. Those 567 small businesses each go out and hire, because that's the thing when you raise money locally, the shit ain't going to New York, it's going to Nacogdoches. It's going local, it's going to Houston, because your community is funding it. And what happens when you keep that dollar circulating locally is amazingness.
It helps the economies thrive. So that's decentralization. That is decentralization.
And so where the VCs, in any healthy ecosystem, you will have a top predator. And so because you're in Texas, it's a Pop Warner football analogy time. You have to have the entrepreneurs, the farm system of bringing people who are thinking about the entrepreneurs who are thinking about becoming entrepreneurs and small business owners. Mm-hmm. This is where Reg CF comes in, because they only need to raise $150,000 to $200,000. VCs are not even looking at
you. To get started, yeah.
Just to get started.
Yeah.
You do that in the Reg CF bucket, in the Reg CF vehicle. If you grow, you can still raise. You don't need to raise $5 million in Reg CF. You can raise up to $5 million via Reg CF, but if you only need $150K, you should do that.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. So that if you grow beyond, you need to raise more than $5 million annually. Remember, you might not know this. In the Reg CF world, each year, each 12 calendar months, you can raise up to $5 million. Hypothetically, 2021, you raised $250,000 as of September.
Yeah.
12 months later, in October of 2022, you might need $3 million because you've scaled.
Yeah.
Right? You could do that under Reg CF. You dust off your paperwork and you put an amendment that says, here's how we've grown in the last year. If you get to the point where you need more than $5 million, you use what's called a Reg A+. It's a different type of SEC, Securities and Exchange exemption. Under Reg A+, you can raise up to $75 million.
Whoa.
And so, yes. And so this is where last year, 63% of investors in Reg CF deals were accredited. The sharks already know where the money's at. It's with the customers. Mr. Wonderful is the spokesperson for Start Engine because he's like, oh yeah, they do have all the money, customers. The sharks, they sense the tide changing. So VCs are like, oh my God, you mean we're going to have to offer fair term sheets or we're going to have to compete with customers? And the founders are like, if you don't want to give me a fair term sheet, I'm going to go to my customers because it turns out I need 20,000 customers on my cap table versus one shark. Because those 20,000, and the biggest myth in crowdfunding that the VC says, that having, you don't want 20,000 customers on your cap table, it ruins your cap table.
Yeah.
No, the fuck it doesn't.
I've heard that. Yeah, we've had a lot of people on ours.
That's because a shark doesn't want to give up this share.
They want their percentage on the cap table.
They want their percentage. And they hate it when you say, here are the terms. You can either invest with these other 1,500, 2,000 investors, or you cannot.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh, we're not going to be able to negotiate and go back and forth. So I can slip my brother on your board, my cousin in your C-suite, and my best friend from college, just put them on your payroll. They're like, nah, none of that shit's in our term sheet. Yeah. And so this is where in the development of the ecosystem, it helps VCs because it improves, much like Pop Warner, you don't just go pro. Yeah. You start when you're 5, you learn the rules of the game so that by the time you're in middle school as a football player or a sports person and an entrepreneur after 5 years, you get it. You understand the game. Then you separate it out. And so less than 98% of folks who receive college athletes actually go on to be in the pros.
Yeah.
They're not great. They're great athletes, but they go to school on a scholarship. Only 2% of them actually go into the pros. And so in the world of raising money, your business, it might only need $250, $3 million, or if you're in the Reg A plus, 75 million.
Yeah.
And so this is where there's a place where VCs will invest in Reg CF deals because they want to get in early, because they're getting Class A shares, they're getting preferred shares, or common stock rather, before you get to the later rounds. But that's a deeper conversation. Yeah, so this is where I'm going to stop talking in one moment. This is where crowdfunding, it changes the behavior of VCs from being predatory to being complementary. Yeah. Because now you have the power of your investors, of your customers, to help you.
Yeah. So they're not predators. They have to be servants. They have to be value add.
They're good. The future of VCs, I write you a $10,000 check and you can send me a job description. You tell me what the hell you want me to do.
Yeah. Get to work. Get to work.
Get to work. Michael Lloyd from Dope Coffee, he says, if you invest in his deal, now that you're an investor, he's going to give you something to do. Mm-hmm. He runs Dope Coffee. And so if you've invested in his deal, he's been like, thank you very much for your $30,000. He got a $30,000 check once. He was like, and then I gave him something to do to help expand with distribution of that product.
Yeah.
Because someone who just cut you a check for $500, $1,000, $30,000, they're not going to tell you no. Otherwise, I'm like, why did you cut me a check if you didn't show up to work?
Yeah, you're incentivized for it to win.
So I got to stop talking because I do have to go in a minute.
Yes, this is awesome, man. We need a part 2. Where can people?
We're gonna do a conference in Texas, in Houston.
Let's get it. Let's talk offline. Where can people follow you, keep up with you, man? Hustlefund Baby.
Yeah, you can find me at Hustlefund Baby across social media. If you Google my name, Samson Williams, you should be able to find me. I do a lot of stuff in the space economy as well. That's a totally another separate conversation. So
another Break into the Future episode.
Yeah.
Thanks, big bro. We're like family after this. Texas guy, legend in the making, Hustlefund Baby. Thanks, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we're breaking into the future.
Peace.
Peace, bro.